Have you been told that you have leaky gut syndrome, or worse yet, have a leaky gut that truly will not heal? What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk to you about the number one reason why your leaky gut will not heal. So the number one reason why your leaky gut will not heal, it's actually due to the relationship between histamine and a protein called zonulin. Now, what zonulin does is zonulin is a protein that opens up the tight junctions of our gut as well as our blood-brain barrier. And if zonulin levels stay elevated, those tight junctions remain open all the time. And that's what we call a type of how the gut is leaky. So basically you have these doorways in the gut lining, protecting the gut, which is the outside world, from the inside world of your bloodstream. And when you eat food, you break down those nutrients, and it's time to absorb those. Those doorways or tight junctions open, you absorb those nutrients, and when you're done eating, those doorways should close back to protect the outside world of your gut from the inside world of your bloodstream. And zonulin is a protein that regulates, or is a gatekeeper that opens and closes those tight junctions. Now, if histamine levels in the gut are very high, then what happens is zonulin is going to stay high. And when that happens, the door stays open 24/7 in what we call a functional leaky gut. So it's not like there's structural damage to the intestinal lining, but from a functional standpoint, if you have high histamine levels in the gut, then you have high zonulin and the gut's going to stay leaky. Now, there is a genetic component to this. And we'll talk about that here in a second regarding the ABP1 gene. But one of the things in the gut that helps regulate and control histamine, specifically from the foods we eat, is an enzyme called diamine oxidase, or DAO. All right. And what happens is if we consume a diet that's high in histamine and we cannot produce enough DAO enzymes because of genetic factors, or it's because that loads too much, or we don't have enough DAO enzymes to cope with the high histamine burden, then what's going to happen is the histamine burden or histamine load in our gut is going to continue to increase. And with that, so is a lot of inflammation, so is increase in zonulin proteins, hence the leaky gut that's not healing. All right. And so, like I mentioned, there is a genetic component to this. There's a gene, ABP1 or AOC1. And what this gene does is it makes those diamine oxidase enzymes, which primary responsibility is to break down histamine in our small intestines from the food that we eat. So if we're consuming a diet very, very high in histamine, and we have genetic factors where we can't make enough diamine oxidase enzymes, that does create a little bit of a perfect storm where our histamine content in our gut is going to be higher than it should, causing ongoing leaky gut, causing ongoing food sensitivities, meaning that, hey, month and month that goes by, there's more and more foods that you seem to not be able to tolerate. All right. And so really the answer to truly heal a leaky gut that won't heal is controlling the histamine burden. And if people have genetic issues in these ABP1 genes, then that brings in another ball game where somebody like that has to follow a lower to moderate histamine diet and really strongly should consider taking or supplement with diamine oxidase enzymes with meals, and specifically with higher histamine-based meals. So what are the things you can do if you have a leaky gut and it's not healing? And this is something that we see in clinical practice where somebody gets diagnosed with leaky gut, they do a test that confirms leaky gut, they go through leaky gut protocols that are out there on the internet, or leaky gut protocols that a practitioner puts them on, and then they retest and the test not better, or they don't feel any better. And they keep getting more food sensitivities. List can go on and on from that standpoint of all the things that manifest. So what are the things that you can do right now if you have leaky gut, or if you have a leaky gut components that does not heal? First thing you want to do is you want to find out from a genetic standpoint, do you have variants or SNPs in these ABP1 or AOC1 genes? Because that'll tell you that, hey, this may be a lifelong issue going forward for you, that you maybe have to adhere at some level to a low to moderate histamine diet, consider taking DAO enzymes with higher histamine foods, or is this maybe just a short-term thing you have to do to truly heal your gut? So if you have a leaky gut component that's not healing, follow a low histamine diet. There's a lot of resources out there that list foods that are high in histamine, foods that are low in histamine. You're going to want to consume as many low to moderate histamine foods as possible and really minimize the amount of intake of those high histamine foods. And there's also foods out there that promote histamine resistance in the body. And a lot of that information is out there, pretty readily available on the internet. It's also available in our Genetic Unlock course. Now, if you have genetic variants in those ABP1 genes, you probably want to consider supplementing with those DAO enzymes going forward the rest of your life at some level, specifically and especially when you consume higher histamine foods. Now, in the short term to heal the gut, maybe what you want to consider doing is supplement with those DAO enzymes to start decreasing the amount of histamine in the gut, start decreasing that histamine load so that those zonulin proteins start to dampen down as well, so you have a better chance for the gut to start healing. All right, so histamine foods. Here's a list of a couple things that's on the slide here that are common things, because a lot of the leaky gut protocols are out there. And some of the things we know that truly can help heal the gut tend to be high in histamine. And if somebody has genetic factors like those ABP1 genes, that might not be the best kind of dietary protocol for them to follow. So for instance, fermented foods. And we know fermented foods have a huge healing power on the gut. But the thing is very, very high in histamine. So somebody that's got histamine issues genetically or the gut's not healing, that might be something that they need to eliminate. Other things, hams, bacon, anchovies, soy, wheat germ, buckwheat, almond oil, avocado oil, cheeses, nut butters, wine and alcohol is very high in histamine, all right? And also probiotics. And so I see a lot of patients that come in and they're supplementing probiotics trying to heal their gut, and they still have bloating, constipation symptoms. Realize there are certain strains of probiotics that are very, very high in histamine. And so much we know this, that there are actually companies now that make lower histamine strain probiotics specifically for those people that have histamine intolerance in the gut. So there could be some things that you're doing that are very healthy for maybe the average person, like fermented foods, like probiotics, things of that nature. But for somebody that's got leaky gut, has a histamine issue, or has genetic factors where they can't make enough of those DAO enzymes, some of those things that maybe helps the average person may not be the best route for you, and you need to kind of have a little bit of a shift in terms of what you're doing to really support the gut and to really heal the gut. And histamine control is really at the foundation in those that truly can never heal the gut and have ongoing issues. So if you want more information about your genetic type and more information about histamine and how it affects the gut, you can go to our website, yourgenetictype.com. You can take our Your Genetic Type quiz to find out if you are possibly a histamine genetic type, which means that this is something you want to investigate from a genetic perspective a little bit more in depth. And then we have other resources there, like our Your Genetic Type Unlock course, that will hold your hand and teach you how to address these things a little more specific, a little bit more deeper based on your genetic type. Hope you learned some information, and we'll see you next time.